Good evening. For those of you that desire, please come and grab a seat. I call this starting at farmer's time because you know when you get asked to go out and help for 10 minutes and 2 hours later you get back in the house. So I call it farmer's time. So my name is Patty Vold, and yes, I am related to all of them. Well, not all of them, because there are other Volds, but the rodeo guys and the auction guys, and I'm related to all of them, where my husband is. So I live east of Ponoka. I have many children, and today I had over half of my grandchildren. I had 6 of them today. And nobody fought, nobody hit each other, nobody pulled hair. It was excellent. So most of you know this hall better than I do, but the bathrooms are out there and the exits are where the big red lights are. And I want to welcome you. I haven't done this for a little bit. I was at the Ponoka Stampede Trade Fair for 4.5 days, and then we were at the Whistle Stop in the later afternoon monsoon. And it was great. At the Ponoka Stampede, we only had, and I didn't even get them. Shane's wife Bonnie was there. I was in Saskatchewan doing other grandchild things. And we only had a couple crazies. So I figured of all the thousands of people that go through there, people who didn't agree with our position just kind of sneered and walked by or just walked by. There was a few people that kind of went, I don't know anything about this. So we'd hand them, we have a brochure back there, and it's the 19 most frequently asked questions with their answers. I think that's one of the best things to give to people. It's just questions and answers. So we have 3 speakers tonight, Ben and Sheane. We always start with a word of prayer, because if we don't bring God into what we're doing, I think we're monkeyed. When we look at that, they took the prayer out of school. I think that was a real, did our children, our grandchildren, a disservice to not even have that. So I ask you to pray. Father, we thank you for being here, and we thank you for the glorious rain that you blessed our province with. Some are maybe not rejoicing as much as others, but we thank you for the gift that you have given to us through that. We thank you for the ability to come in a building and gather and speak tonight, and we just thank you for that. We thank you for the gifts of the people that came tonight and all the contacts that they have, and we ask, Lord, that you give discernment as to how we approach people that maybe not have the same thoughts and ideals that we have, so that we can be united in what we're doing moving forward. We just thank you, Father, for the love that you give to us, and we thank you for blessing us. We thank you that you have given this lovely province for us to live in, and we ask that you help us be good stewards of it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Who's first? The man in mustard? Ben Crane. I've known of Ben Crane for a long time, but now I am getting to know Ben Crane. He's a delightful human being. He is an artist, a musician, a cartoonist, a singer-songwriter, and the best bumpa ever. How many of you, I like to put this in, how many of you have been in the drugstores and seen the cards where the cow is sticking her tongue up her nose? That's his card. And it has been on the racks for 30 years. Usually a long greeting card is 5. So I'm not sure what that says about the people who buy them for the last 30 years, but he also actually has a song about that. But I'm going to invite you to my friend Ben Crane to come up. He's got a bit of a cold, so He won't be doing his guitar work tonight and singing to you, so. But it will be played. You just don't get the personal touch. Okay, Ben Crane. Oh, are they gonna play it first? Okay.
Thank you. That was weird. Oh man. I apologize to everybody in the room tonight and to y'all online. I got a gift from my grandchildren. They gave me a cold, and well, it's your grandkids, so what are you gonna say, right? You take it and you make it worse. So I can sing about 3 notes tonight, and that would have been entertaining, but I'm not sure you would have got the message. So anyway, we decided to go through it that way. There's another one that I writ that we're going to play after this, in between the next one. So anyway, that was kind of been my contribution to this thing. We got a bunch of guys that are really smart, and we've got constitutional lawyers that speak. We've got economists. We got guys that know big words and understand how to let you know what's going on. We've got guys who've been thrown in the hooskow for what they believe. And I'm just kind of a normal guy. I don't know the answers. None of us really do. We're not up here to say that we have the answers. Our goal is to have you folks just get talking with each other. And just out of curiosity, how many here tonight, is this the first meeting like this you've ever come to? Anybody? Oh, yeah. Thanks so much for coming, you guys. And I'm imagining that some of you are on the fence or just completely opposed. And that is very cool, because what we want to do is we want to see both sides be able to get together and talk. There you go. So what we're gonna, it's getting crazy out there, just really crazy. There's division and polarized views, and the thing that blows my socks out of the water is this idea of responding to disagreements with violence. That is weird. I've never was growing up with that kind of. That's the stuff you'd see in countries that were really dangerous over on the other side of the world somewhere. And now we got it here. A friend of mine and I was just talking tonight. Just today, he was in Vulcan, and a guy came up to him and threatened to shoot him. I mean, this stuff is in our backyard. This is not normal. What's changed? What makes it okay to respond to disagreements with violence? You know how I look at this whole thing is playoff times. Say we got the Oilers and the Flames going at it. So you'll have a Flames flag, because I know you're a good man, and then you'll have an Oilers flag. And I mean, we'll laugh at each other and kind of good-natured taunting at each other. Oh, what a bunch of losers! And then you'll sit down and watch the game together, and you'll leave having a beer or two, and arm in arm. See you next time. That's what it's supposed to look like. That is our culture. And this is not normal. Our culture has been imported. It's kind of a God complex. My wife and I were having coffee and trying to figure this whole thing out. What is going on? It's like a God complex where I decide whether your opinion, oh, that was cute, whether your opinion has any merit or not. In fact, I decide whether you have any merit or not. And it's treating people lower than animals. We don't even treat our animals that way. It's like a barbarism. It's like Caesar. Thumbs up, the guy lives. Thumbs down, the guy dies. It's just that simple and that decisive. And again, this is not our culture. We've got to return to our roots. That's the song I wrote that we just heard. My Alberta roots run deep. And in that song, I'm telling folks what my Alberta roots are like. And I think that's the same story with a lot of people. Can a society actually survive after rejecting the values that it was built on? I think you just look outside and you'll have the answer. My friend's daughter brought him a pamphlet last week from a church that she was going to. And she said, "Dad, what do you think of this?" and he looked at it, and it basically it said in encapsulated, if you choose to leave Canada in the referendum, it's going to be immediate disaster. Not just mayhem, but disaster. The world's going to fall. Chicken Little, everything's going to fall, okay? Because we don't have the answers to all the questions that we got. And if you choose to stay, we get to keep the status quo. And that sounds, innocuous enough, but you know what? There is no status quo, because status quo implies that something is staying the same. This Canada that you and I remember from back when we was kids, that Canada is no longer there. And especially lately, our government is taking a hard left and heading off this way. He's not staying the same. There is no status quo. What's he doing? He has plans to join the EU. We thought it was bad enough that Central Canada made all our decisions for us out here. What about getting them made in Belgium? This is not cool. Pulling away from the U.S. in favor of communist China, doing everything within its power to destroy our economy, our heritage, and our culture. There's no status quo. There's nothing remaining. In fact, if you want status quo, choose independent Alberta. We're the ones who want to return to what we've had, our culture and our heritage. And we're the ones who closest resemble that old nostalgic feeling of the Canada that we all love. Honestly, folks, I really believe that the majority of both sides want the same thing. We want a free life. We want to be able to honor and remember our vets, the people who have died to give us the freedom that we have. I honestly think they died for the freedom. They didn't die just for the colors of the flag. They died for what we stand for. And that's the nostalgia that people have fallen in love with. But I really believe that a vote for remaining in Canada is a vote for joining the EU, joining the WEF, joining ranks with communist China, and rejecting our largest trading partner, that we've had a close and extremely successful trading and cultural ties for generations. So that's the bad news. Can we all just go home and go, I would love to be able to give you guys a smile on your face, and that's not just because you have gas. I want you to be able to have some hope when you walk out that door tonight, that you can have a grin on your face and saying, you know what, we can do this. There is hope. So I got 3 things that I wrote down today about what we can do. We can get informed. Now, I notice that most of our audience is geezers. And I'm a GIT. I'm a geezer in training. And so I'm watching y'all and seeing how you guys do it. In fact, I joined the ranks 2 weeks ago, and I finally had a heart attack just so I could be like you guys. And so I'm a bona fide, I guess that makes me a bona fide geezer. There you go. But listen, geezers do not like to look for things on the inner tube, because we don't even know how to work them little gadgets that hook you up. But, question what you hear. Use your built-in BS meter for more than just a fan. Question what I say. Question what anybody up here says. Question what CBC says. And check it out for yourself. We got to make our own decisions. We have been way too long sitting down on our cushy couches, voting every 4 years, and then complaining the next 4 years about how bad the guy is that got in. We have not got involved. We have not got informed. We expect everybody else to do our thinking for us. That time is done. Look at alternative media for the other side of the story. We got a whole list of them: Western Standard, Juno News, Northern Perspective, Rebel News, a bunch of podcasters. And you know what's cool about this is not everybody is on the separatist side. Ben Trudeau, the other Ben who is here tonight, is not a separatist. He's a sovereigntist. He's got good ideas. I want to listen to him. So make up your own mind and have an informed opinion. That's the get informed thing. Number 2, reject fear. I love this one. You don't have to live in fear. Realize that fear is a commodity. I have a friend who's a comedian, a humorist, author. And he says things have changed over the last 10, 15 years. He says sex usually used to be the thing that would sell a book. If it's got something really steamy and kinky in there, boy, they're just going to go off the shelf. He says that doesn't do that anymore. He says that's been replaced with fear. And you go on InterTube or any of the Netflix and all that. You look at the movies and the series. A lot of them are all about fear because fear sells. It's a commodity. And fear typically thrives because of lies. Did you know that? This is really cool. This is something I've learned. All you got to do, 2 things: identify the lie, and then find out the truth that replaces that. So you're believing the lie, so you're afraid. You find out, oh, you know what? That isn't really what happened. This happened. Oh, then I don't have to be afraid. Does that make sense? In just a real quick nutshell. An example, CPP versus the APP. Everybody, especially our age, is really concerned about what we've worked for. You know what the lie is that I've heard? That we'll lose everything that we've worked for and invested in. You know what the truth is? And Ben can tell you about that because he's written a book that has a huge section on this. The truth is, it's yours no matter where in the world you live. If you move to Timbuktu, you get your pension. What are you worried about? And then on top of that, the federal government has already squandered those investments in places that don't give good returns. But check that out for yourself. Remember, we talked about doing that. Get informed. That's your homework for tonight, class. Don't be afraid of what you don't know. The pioneers weren't. They left all that cushy stuff, and they headed out west. They had no idea what they was heading into. They didn't know nothing. All they knew is there was some wild Indians out there somewhere, and they didn't know what they would do. They didn't have a clue what the snow and the winters was going to be like up in the passes. Read Donner's Pass. People died. They didn't know what lay ahead, but they did know what lay behind, and that was no longer an option. That's where you and I are, folks. What is behind us, what we're in right now, in my opinion, is no longer an option. This is why I am putting a yes on let's head out. So they didn't know, but they went anyway. And you and I, every one of us, is here today because they did. There's hope. We can do it again. And the last one is talk. Don't be afraid to talk. We've got to get the message out. We've got to get the truth out. And you don't need to know all the points. I don't. I don't know anyone who does. Find a point that you're interested in or knowledgeable about and learn that. And then you can talk with other people. And don't be afraid when they say, well, what about... and you have absolutely no clue. Don't be afraid to say, that I don't know, but I'm going to find out, and I'll get back to you. Be bold. Look for the truth, and don't be afraid of what you don't know yet. There's people working on those answers that you don't know, and I don't know. Keith Wilson's going to be rolling, with something out the end of this month. There's some white papers that he's working on. APP had a whole deal that they put out a long time ago. People have thought this through. They're working on what would be good answers. And this is the big thing. Put that big old grin on your face and celebrate the fact that we have a very rare very precious opportunity for the first time in our life and in the life of our country. You and I can actually have a say in how we want to be governed and how we want a new country to look like. That has never been done, and people die all over the world for that privilege. And you know what? It's handed to us here. So let's not waste this. We can get our culture, our history, and our economy back, and our freedom. The U.S. just celebrated 250 years. And we are not pushing anything to do with joining the states. None of us want that. But by golly, I watched some of the stuff that those guys put out on the inner tube about how they celebrated the freedom that they have. And boy, I cried. I had to stand and take my hat off, because that freedom, that just grabbed a hold right here and said, that is what I want. And it's not because I'm selfish, it's because God has made us to want freedom. So, one old feller said, the only way to accurately predict our future is not a crystal ball, it's to write it. I love that. So let's grab a pen and start writing. Thank you so much. Here's big dreams. Oh, thank you so much. I'm sorry I can't sing it for you proper, but that was just as, it was easier for you because I stepped behind the curtain and you could relax there for a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a personal friend of mine. I've got to know this man. I love him very much. He's that big because there's that big of a heart inside him, and you could not fit that heart anywhere smaller. So this man was born in Quebec, raised in there, and he'll tell you all about that, and he's got some very fine ideas. He's been all over the place, and he's a big hitter. Ladies and gentlemen, Benoit, listen, wait for this. I want to see if you clap. Trudeau.
Well, here, I've been told just to remove it from there. Well, good evening. Sorry, I'm about to lose my voice too. Probably I shouldn't hug Ben. So my name is Benoit Trudeau. I'm from Quebec, and for those who wonder, yes, I'm related, 14 generation back. So our family tree meet in 1642, 1648 in Montreal to the first Trudeau in Canada. And Justin is from the eldest son of that Étienne Trudeau, and I'm from the second one. And the third one became the first mayor of New Orleans, because we tend to forget the 225 years of French history before September 13, 1759, when the English won at the Plains of Abraham in Quebec City. And I'm here to tell you a bit about the history of our country and the fight that has been occurring in the past to get the privilege we get now in Alberta to be able to even contemplate separation. After the English won in 1759, and after the BNA, the British ruled, they started taking farms from the French that had been farming along the St. Lawrence River for over 200 years at that point, and giving them to Americans who wanted to remain faithful to the king. So the French didn't like having their farm 6 generations deep being taken away, so they rebelled. It's called the Patriots. It peaked in 1837, 1838. It was a civil war that we don't know about outside of Quebec. In Quebec, we do have a day to celebrate that. So in Quebec, we don't have Victoria Day. We have Patriots Day to remember that we fought to get our sovereignty and to get the rights to rule as a province and to have constitutional right to move almost independently. In 1838, 12 leaders of that movement of the Patriot were hung in Montreal, including notaries, lawyers, poets. 100 were expatriated to Australia. And before that, over 450 died in battles against the English. So already in 1838, the count was already at 500-600 deaths for sovereignty. Then came 1867. Basically, the Canadian Constitution was more of a peace treaty between the English and the French. And they brought in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia as an arbitrator in the mix. And right there, Quebec already had negotiated a lot of things for themselves, which the English didn't really care, because they say, you know what, they make way too much children, we won't be able to beat them by number, so we'll beat them by money. And by 1900, if you were living in Montreal, in Griffintown, which was in near downtown Montreal today, your life expectancy was 19 years old. And if you were French in 1900, you couldn't get any loan from any bank. If you were French, the banks wouldn't lend you. So instead of crying to injustice and all that, the French said, okay, we'll start our own stuff. And they started Caisse Populaire Desjardins, which is now the largest credit union in North America. Desjardins, probably a lot of you sitting here have insurance from them. So they became one of the largest financial institutions. It's a cooperative. It's owned by 7.8 million Quebecers. So Desjardins has 7.8 million out of 9 million Quebecers have account at Desjardins, which make them very sovereign with their money because they keep their money to themselves. And then in 1954, when the federal government was telling or talking about keeping the income tax as a permanent solution after imposing it in 1917 for the war, well, the Quebec premiers say, well, we will collect our own tax. We don't need you to collect our tax. And it wrecked the plan of the federal government by collecting their own tax, which is constitutional. And in 1957, the feds, not knowing what to do, they say, okay, we'll put together something for equalization because we don't want you to keep all your taxes and deprive us of some of the taxes. So the equalization program was created in 1957 because a province took its right according to the Constitution. And then fast forward, 1965, the federal government said, hey, let's create a pension plan, the Canada Pension Plan. And Quebec said, well, okay, but we won't be part of it. We want our own. And the Quebec created its own pension plan at the same time the Canada Pension Plan was created. So 60 years later, the Quebec Pension Plan and its investment fund have controlled $500 billion of assets for 6 million insured. The Canadian Pension Fund controlled $700 billion of assets for 22 million insured. So the Quebec Pension Plan has been more performant than the Canadian Pension Plan by 3 to 4 times. And one of the rules in the Quebec Pension Plan is to invest in Quebec and in Canada, which today makes the Quebec Pension Plan owning more real estate here in Alberta than the government of Alberta himself. The Cross Iron Mill, it's owned by the Quebec Pension Plan. The outlet at the airport here in Edmonton, the Quebec Pension Plan. Londonderry Mall, Quebec Pension Plan. A couple of towers and in Calgary. So my message here is that Quebec has been tolling and has been paying the price for independence. The latest price that they paid before their 2 referendum was in 1970. So during the 60s, the separatist movement was shut down, was shut off by the political realm. So they started putting bombs, over 200 bombs from 1962 to 1970. And finally, in 1970, the Commerce Council of England was kidnapped in exchange of CBC airing a manifest to declare the sovereignty of Quebec. And when CBC refused, well, then they kidnapped another guy, Pierre Laporte, Minister of Labor, provincial. And the day that Laporte was kidnapped, Trudeau, who has prepared the deal for a long time, starting by moving the headquarters of the army, of the Canadian Army, to Montreal when he became Prime Minister in 1968. That's the first thing he did. He sent 12,000 soldiers, half an hour drive from downtown Montreal. And on October, I don't remember the date exactly, but in October 1970, at 4 a.m., he declared a war measures against Quebec. And by 4:30 a.m., there was 12,000 soldiers in the street of Montreal with tanks at the corner of streets. And the Liberal Party gave a list of 437 names, people that had spoken against them, and political opponents that were all arrested that night. So there's at 4:30 a.m. there's 437 doors of houses, apartments that has been busted in with soldiers coming in and dragging those who have spoken against the Liberal government out of their bed. So that's the reality of the independence in Quebec. In 1980, we hit 40% for the yes. The speech of Premier Lévesque was "See you next time." At the time, I was 8 years old, a bit too young, but my dad was very, very involved. My dad is a speechwriter, PR guy, and always encouraged me to get involved because I've been in so many backroom meetings with politicians. At 14, I joined the Young Liberals. At the time, we were negotiating Meech Lake with Mulroney. Meech Lake was set to be a disaster because the deadline was June 23rd, 1990 to accept the deal. And the Quebec national holiday, the real celebration, is on June 24, Saint-Jean-Baptiste. So Quebecers, on July 1st, there's no fireworks on July 1st. On July 1st, we move. Like this past July 1st, because we have the civil code, by civil code, most of the tenancy agreement, so the lease, expired on June 30th. So what you do on July 1st, you move. So it's pizza day. It's not fireworks day, and it's moving day. So that's what Quebec. So the real celebration is the week before, June 24, Saint-Jean-Baptiste, and anything that you put close to that date is very sensitive. So when Meech Lake was rejected by Newfoundland and 2 other provinces on June 23rd, on June 24th, during our celebration, we got the real reason to get away from Canada. They don't want us. And that was the start. And then, economically speaking, it was not very good. In 1989, when I got out of high school, the unemployment rate to the 18, 25 years old was 38%. So only 2 out of 3 of my age were getting jobs. So it's easy in that time to say, well, it's because of the feds that you don't have a job. And then you get real involvement. And that brought us to Charlottetown. Charlottetown, I campaigned for the no of Charlottetown. We were 2,000 youth in the Liberal Party that left altogether because the Premier used his veto against us. And then we decided to campaign for the no, which after that led to the creation of our own party in 1994. I was 22 years old. I was one of the 75 candidates out of 125 riding. But we gathered 7% of the vote. And that 7% was what they were missing to get the yes going. So they brought us in. And the question asked in 1995 on October 30th was our question, was the youth question. And that question was not a separation question. It was a double clutch question, a double speed question. The first, it gave the mandate to the Premier to negotiate a new deal with Ottawa. And if it fails, then we separate. Out of that question came the judgment of the Supreme Court 1998 that became the Clarity Act in 2000. When the Clarity Act in 2000 was voted in at the Commons, the very next day, it was voted out by the Quebec Parliament. All the legislature of Quebec rejected the Clarity Act. And there's a law in Quebec saying that if there's a referendum, they will not follow the Clarity Act. And since then, Quebec has been asserting its sovereignty to the extent of what our Constitution allows us to do. Every state in the United States would be jealous of the rights we have as a province to assert our right, to control our own immigration, to control our own economic development. Quebec has 38 embassies across the world. They're called Maisons du Québec. You go to Paris, New York, London, Tokyo, there's the Maison du Québec. You don't go to the Casa Embassy. And all of these Maisons du Québec negotiate deals for Quebec. And once the deal is set, they call the feds and say, come and sign, because they cannot go in treaty. Ottawa has the right to do that. But they deal their stuff. Same for immigration. My sister is Vietnamese. She was adopted in 1981. In 87, my dad worked out to have her family come in, her dad's other sister, moms. And when you were immigrating already in the 80s in Quebec, you had to go to a 5-day training sessions. And at the end of that 5 days, you had to sign a social contract saying that I learned the roots of Quebec, I learned the history of Quebec, I learned those who died for the sovereignty of Quebec, I learned about the French in Quebec, and I agree with this value, and I sign to respect it. If you do not sign that social contract, you get out of the province. And this is exactly what the dad of my sister did. He refused to sign that contract. He moved to Toronto. So we have the right, as a province, to determine, based on who we are, who we want. And if they do not agree, well, they can go to BC or somewhere else. So this is what I'm campaigning for. What what I wrote in that book, I wrote the history of Canada the way I knew it, the way I was taught about it, and the way the way most Quebecers sees it. After that, I wrote what Quebec does to assert all of their rights within Constitution. You know what? Quebec, the same day that we adopted the sovereign Alberta within United Canada under the first day of premiership of Premier Smith, that same day, Quebec voted to remove all allegiance to the Crown for the MLAs. In 2023, they voted to remove the royal assent, saying we will no longer wait for the royal assent for laws. When it voted in the legislature, it's done. The lieutenant governor is a clerk. And then right after, they said to the feds, you know what, your clerk, pay him. We don't want to pay him anymore. And they put a for sale sign in front of his house. And then when King Charles came to do his speech of the throne under the first Carney intervention, at the same time that King Charles was speaking at the Common, Quebec in their legislature voted unanimously. 5 parties represented. Everybody voted unanimously to kick the Crown out for good. And they had a bailiff in Ottawa waiting for the law to be voted to hand give the king that paper, that new law, that Quebec is not answering to him in any shape or form, and he's not welcome on their territory. And what happened? Nothing. Quebec has had, since 1978, 5 Supreme Court judgments against their French language legislation. 4 so far. Now we're at that 5 lawsuit. What happened? Nothing. What will they do? Send the army? They already did in 1970. So what I'm telling is that I'm advocating for a change of political culture in this province. Because a lot of things that we ask is available. We just need to take it. We just need the courage to take it. And this is what I'm talking about in that book. And now I will just show you, I will get it probably in the next 2 weeks. I wrote a little small one on equalization, simply, just to tell people what Quebec does to shield $3.6 billion. So they receive $3.6 billion more than what they should in equalization. And here in that book, I show how to do the same. I will have a bunch of other books from probably now till fall on one subject per book, just to tell you what we can do like right now and what we can do to do the same. So one thing that is important in all that stuff, and I will end on that, a problem I believe that Albertans have. Wait, that's my page. So what advantage that Quebec has over us is the language and the culture. French Canadian is French Canadian. It's not French France. It exists only in that territory. And we identify by that. 54% of Quebecers don't speak a word of English, not a single word. The only thing they know is some word like toaster. Toaster is the same in French. No, we use it. Hamburger, we use it in French. But they don't know a single word of English. They don't read English. They don't speak English. So what do they do? And not only that, but we're not French either. We don't take media from France. We create our own because we have our own culture, our own language. We don't have that advantage here. But what we have is the advantage of our history. Alberta was socially, culturally built by the federal government purposely in the mix of who they choose to immigrate here. With the Ukrainian, with the Eastern European and all that, they were purposely chosen, one after the other, to create a society that would be lenient toward Ottawa. But what they didn't expect is that all of these people were resilient. And because they just gave them a land, you had to cultivate that land. And it created people with very, very strong values that makes Alberta what Alberta is today. And I moved here, I was 35 years old. I married my wife, I was 39. She was born and raised in Edmonton. My in-laws as well. We have 4 kids, all born and raised in Edmonton. I was never raised to be Canadian. I was raised to be Quebecers. I've never been a Canadian in my life. I was Quebecer before moving here. So here it wasn't an option to become Canadian. I'm Albertan. But what is an Albertan? I don't speak like one. I moved here, I was well off in my adulthood. I will tell you what I think is an Albertan. I identify 8 heartstrings of what is an Albertan. Heartstring number 1, enduring moral compass. Judeo-Christian values define our laws and identity. Heartstring number 2, earned equality. Merit matters, not identity markers. Heartstring number 3, hands off freedom. Small government, stay in your lane. Heartstring number 4, pioneer grit. Family-centered, self-reliant, property respecting. Heartstring number 5, real leaders, real results. Builders, not spenders. Conviction, not corruption. Heartstring number 6, wise land guardianship. Sustainable use by those who live here. Heartstring number 7, move or die accountability. Self-reliance, personal responsibility. Heartstring number 8, proud Canadian Albertan. Honor the past, defend the future. I believe that this is what it is to be Albertan. And I believe that we have the right to put up an immigration ministry and put up these values in the classroom or in a test at the registry before getting your driver's license in this province. You got to answer this question. If you don't want to respect this value, go out. So that's what I have to say. That's what I have to communicate. I always say I'm not a separatist. I'm a sovereignist. And this is where I disagree the most with my good friend Sheane, who's following me. Sheane has a beautiful research history and beautiful mind on Alberta, and he will share with you a lot of very, very insightful historical thing and even present thing on Alberta. He always said that he will end up convincing me. I'm having the same position since I'm 14. I was not a separatist in Quebec neither. I'm not here. I believe that we can do way much just having the courage to use our constitution. And now my friend Sheane, the separatist.
The independentist. There we go. That's right.
That's just the right. Hello, my internet friends.
I usually have a podium here just to hold my notes. What I'm going to talk about a little bit about is the historical relationship between Ottawa and what is now known as Alberta and Saskatchewan. Originally, this was part of the Northwest Territories, where we sit now. And in the 1880s, to about 1903, 1904, there was a huge settler movement of American settlers coming up to the Northwest Territories. They were making Ottawa very, very nervous, and it's one of the main reasons why they cut out Alberta and Saskatchewan as provinces, because it's a lot easier to absorb a territory, than it is a province. How many people here have heard of the little spot on the map called USONA? Oh, it's more than most crowds. I live 6 miles from USONA. Do you know what USONA stands for? The United States of North America. And in the early 1900s, it was a community of about 500 people. It's now down to about 8 people. And how many people here know the town of Rimbey? Almost everybody. Its original name was Kansas Ridge. The city of Airdrie, Yankee Valley. There's a little community straight west of here, almost straight west. It's the Dakota region. All over Alberta and Saskatchewan, there are towns and communities that are known now by American names, or at one point in time had American-sounding names. This, like I was saying, this made Ottawa very, very nervous, and is one of the main reasons why they decided to form Alberta and Saskatchewan. In 1903, on the steps of the Manitoba legislature, Sir Clifford Sifton made the following statement: "We desire, and all Canadian patriots desire, that the great trade of the prairies shall go to enrich our people to the east, to build up our factories and our places of work, and in every legitimate way to our prosperity." Now, why would we care what some guy said 121 years ago, 123 years ago? Well, Sir Clifford Sifton was the main author of both the Alberta Act and Saskatchewan Acts. So on September 1st, 1905, Alberta and Saskatchewan were legislated into being. How many people here have ever had a chance to read the Alberta Act? There's a couple. I would encourage you to go to the Government of Alberta website and download a copy. It's only a few pages long, and it will definitely open up your eyes of how we were founded. We were given the name of a province, but we were given the rights and responsibilities of a territory. They were literally forming us just to stop the Americans from taking over the territories. And if you get a chance to read it, you will see that we've had to fight ever since to get any rights and responsibilities of a province. In 1913, the federal government came out with the Railroad Act amendments. Now, what did this do? Well, this made it so that regional railroads were not allowed to cross provincial lines. So let's say you loaded grain in Stettler and you were heading for Thunder Bay. When you hit the Saskatchewan border, you'd have to offload, load onto a Saskatchewan carrier. Same at the Manitoba border, same at the Ontario border. Well, this made it very, very difficult for the regional railways. And by 1939, most of them had ran out of money and shut down. The last one was 1972, and that was Alberta Northern Railways. But they had been bought out before that, but they finally lost their name in 1972. How many people have driven down Taylor Drive in Red Deer and you see that pillar on the side of the road that says Alberta Central Railway? Well, they were one of the largest railways in Alberta up until the Railroad Act amendments. And that is the last remaining piece of that railway. They actually ran right through here, all the way to the Saskatchewan border. The only remaining piece of the Alberta Northern Railway is at Rycroft, and it's a caboose in the museum. The rest of it has been wiped completely off the planet. But the funny thing is when they brought this in, they made Eastern Railways exempt. So there's still the regional railways that are still going in the East. And it's because of the fact that they were made exempt from the Railroad Act amendments. But in 1943, a brand new railway was formed, and they bought up all of the assets of all of the Western regional railways that had gone out of business, and they became known as Canadian National Railway. In 1930, the provinces negotiated with Ottawa for the Natural Resources Transfer Agreement. And what that did is it transferred all of the natural resources to the control of the provinces. But the federal government made it very clear to Alberta and Saskatchewan at the time that they were not considering them full-fledged provinces, so that they would still control their natural resources, and they've been trying ever since to do so. On December 11th, 1931, the King pronounced the Statute of Westminster. What that did is it gave sovereignty over land and resources to the people in care of the provinces, not in care of Ottawa, in care of the provinces. What does that mean? That means that there is no federal land within the borders of any province. And if we had enforced this, which we haven't been enforcing it, we would never have had Jasper happen, because we could have managed the forest, which we would have done a much better job of doing, and if it did come on to a fire, our firefighters could have got in and fought the fire. So that's one of the first things we need to do, is take back control of our land, because we were given that on December 11th, 1931. In 1935, the Canada Wheat Board was formed. And when it was first formed, it was formed as a voluntary marketing board. But that was just a disguise, because what it was actually formed for was a way to grab Western Canadian grain. And they quite literally talked to a couple of farmers and a couple of the descendants of farmers that actually shipped their grain to Ottawa and ended up getting a bill from the railway for the freight and never got paid for the grain. It was seized by the Canada Wheat Board to feed the people in the East. In 1946, it was made mandatory for all Western Canadian farmers. Now, what does that mean? Why is it different for the Wheat Board? Was it different for the Wheat Board than non-Wheat Board? Well, if I was an Ontario farmer and I wanted to sell my grain to the United States, to do that, I'd pull my truck up to the grain bin, load my truck up, drive across the line and sell my grain to the States. If I lived east or west of the Manitoba border, I'd pull up to my grain bin, load my truck, pull into the local elevator, unload my grain, pull around to the other side of the elevator, reload my grain, and pay the Wheat Board a markup on it, and then I could sell it to the States. You weren't allowed to directly sell internationally your grain without going through the Wheat Board if you lived in Western Canada. Now, this stayed in effect until 2012. And by that time, the Western Canadian farmer had enough of it, and they were complaining. But before this happened, 13 farmers in Alberta and Saskatchewan decided that it was their mountain to die on and that they would go to jail for it. And I've had the pleasure of having a couple of them actually speak to the issue. And so they spent between 6 months and a year in jail, and a lot of times in solitary confinement, for having wanted to sell their grain directly to the U.S. And so in 2012, it was finally abolished. In 1947, we had just discovered our vast oil reserves. We knew that we had oil. We had discovered oil before that, but we found very large reserves, and the federal government decided that they wanted their part of it. So in 1947, they brought in the federal control of oil pricing and pipelines. And this meant that they controlled our prices. We were not controlled by the world market. We were controlled by the federal government. They told us what we could charge for oil. They also told us where we could put a pipeline. And this stayed in effect until 1950, when it was finally repealed. 1965, how many here, doesn't look like there's too many old enough, how many here are old enough to remember the great flag debate of 1965? Oh, there's more than I thought. Okay, by the time I started school in the 1970s, early 1970s, it had already been memory hold. But in 1965, then Prime Minister Lester B. Pearson decided that he wanted to make a flag that was to be representative of all the people of Canada. So the red bars on the side are supposed to represent the oceans, and the maple leaf in the center is supposed to represent the people of Canada. But Diefenbaker decided to stand up in the House of Commons and ask him a simple question. He asked him, why are you using the sugar maple that is only found in eastern Canada? Why are you not using something like the Manitoba maple, which is found coast to coast? Well, Pearson did not like this, so he forced closure on the bill. And when it went to vote, not a single Western Canadian MP voted for the maple leaf. In fact, there was so much animosity in Western Canada over it that in 1967, just 2 years later, during the centennial celebrations, many towns and cities throughout Western Canada refused to fly the maple leaf. Instead, they flew the red ensign, which is our other official flag. And a lot of people do not realize that the red ensign is still an official flag of Canada. It's flown by many of our military forces, and it's still a representation of our country. But by 1972, when I started school, it had been completely memory hold. You stood up, I salute the flag, the emblem of my country. To her, I pledge my love and loyalty. Heard nothing about it until years later when I was doing research. And many people, I do not understand why many Western Canadians have kind of forgotten about what that flag that was forced on us. In 1973, they brought in the federal government brought in the oil export taxation policies, and they put a cap on Alberta's oil profits. So what did this mean? Well, we were always told that in the 70s we had an energy shortage. No, we had a policy shortage. So if you were an oil company and the federal government gave you an energy cap said that you could produce 100,000 barrels a day, and if you produced 101,000, the profits went to Ottawa, would you produce over your quota? No, it wouldn't make any sense. But that's exactly what had happened. And so this stayed in effect for 18 months. Our then Premier, Peter Lougheed, fought tooth and nail to get it repealed. And in 1974, it was repealed. But they weren't done with us, because 6 years later, they brought in the National Energy Program, which had everything from the 73-74 program, plus we now had to make it a priority to sell to Eastern Canada at their set price. We weren't allowed to sell to other markets until we satisfied the Eastern markets. And this stayed in effect until 1988. Now, it was repealed by Brian Mulroney, and he said it wasn't fair to Western Canadians. However, it was an election year, number one, and number two, oil prices had dropped so low that it was costing them more to enforce the program than they were getting out of the program. In the 1980s, we had several things happen, and Ben touched on a few of them. In 1982, we had the Constitution be repatriated. We had, in the 80s, we had the first Quebec referendum. And then in 95, we had the second Quebec referendum. Now, the second Quebec referendum gave us a great advantage here in Alberta. Because in 1998, the federal government decided to take the fact that Quebec had a referendum and take it to the Supreme Court and say, can a province actually secede from Canada? And the Supreme Court came back and said yes, but they have to follow these steps in order for it to happen. And that is, they then took the recommendations of the Supreme Court, they took it back to the legislature, and that is the basis of the Clarity Act. And that is why we have been trying to follow the steps of the Clarity Act. So now we'll jump forward to 2012. And Bill C-38, the Jobs, Growth, and Prosperity Act, gave Ottawa complete control over our major projects. We couldn't build a highway. We couldn't build a pipeline. We couldn't build a high-rise without federal approval. In 2016, they brought in federal carbon pricing, which we all know what that did to our oil industry. In 2019, they brought in Bill C-69, the No More Pipelines Act, and Bill C-48, the tanker ban on the West Coast. Well, last fall, Premier Smith and Prime Minister Carney signed an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, which would have removed those four bills. But within 1 week of that MOU being signed, Parliament voted them down. And you want to know something? Many Western Canadian MPs voted for that as well, which is ridiculous. So now brings us to modern. And by modern, I mean last few weeks even. We got Bill C-8 that is passed. We got Bill C-9 that is passed, and both have had royal assent. We got Bill C-22 that is sitting in committee right at the moment. Bill C-8 and Bill C-9 should have every Canadian up in arms. Bill C-8 is the Internet Censorship Bill. And what it does is, at the stroke of a pen of the minister, any person without any reason can be removed from the internet. And that means not just removing your ISP, That means you're wiped off the internet. Your presence is gone. That means no more online banking, no more of many things that we take for advantage that have to touch the internet to be able to do. And the thing is you have no recourse under the bill. You have no way to appeal that decision. Now, will they roll it out on the average Joe immediately? Probably not. But the potential is there. October 20th, I expect to be gone as soon as the writ is done. Then you got Bill C-9, the anti-hate speech bill. Now, this is another broad bill, but it's also a broad bill with a couple of targets in it. One of those targets is religion, specifically Christianity. You quote the Bible, and you can go to jail and lose all your assets. If the person that you quoted it to decides to take offense to it, and under that bill, if you go to jail, you have to go through the court process. But if they seize your assets, they don't have to give them back under that bill. I imagine that somebody will have to take that to the Supreme Court, and it'll probably get defeated, but that's a long process and a lot of money to do so. Another area that's targeted is political speech, directly. So another one that I expect to be hit by on October 20th is Bill C-9. So, because if my political speech offends you under that bill, I can be arrested for it. Bill C-9 is probably one of the most totalitarian bills that we've seen introduced in Canada ever. And then we got Bill C-22. You've probably seen the hearings in the House of Commons over the last couple of weeks, like a couple of weeks ago, where you had the major carriers, the social media presences like Signal, Facebook, all of them testifying in front and saying that they're going to be pulling out of Canada. And the reason for that is that you will lose all encryption. It's not like in the States where the law enforcement gets a back door where they have to prove that you've done something wrong, and then they're provided a back door to be able to get it to access. No, they have to remove all of the encryption on all of our files so that the federal government can read them all. Now, if I phone you and they think that there's something hairy going between us, they have to get a warrant to be able to listen to our phone call. But under Bill C-22, they don't need a warrant to be able to access all your private conversations over the internet. They bypass the Telecommunications Act, which gives you the same protections on the internet as it does via phone. And that is very, very frightening that they can do that. And it's not just to catch terrorists. They can tell everything you're doing and then they could leak it. There'd be no privacy anymore when they're able to do that. Now that I've made you all happy people with this great news of what's coming down, we're going to take a short break here right away. But first, I'd like to ask Brad and Ben, can I get you because to grab the other bucket, and I'll get you to pass them around. And this tour is funded entirely by people like you. It's believe it or not, we're not getting hundreds of thousands of dollars from Trump or Russia. If we did, the check bounced for me. So if you're able to give something, it's greatly appreciated. If you're not, don't worry about it, but every little bit helps. None of us is taking a salary. We all do it for gas money only. So if you're able to help, it's greatly appreciated. And I'll let them get that. So the way we're going to do it is we'll take about a 10-minute break. Usually ends up being 10 to 15 minutes. It just depends on if I'm in the middle of a conversation and can't herd everybody back up. But then we'll come back and we'll do question and answer. And if you have any hard-hitting questions, please feel free to ask them at that time. And if you are opposed to anything that we've said, I encourage you to be the first in line. Promise that there's no question, unless you get nasty with me, there's no question I won't try to answer. The only time I ever get red in the face is if somebody starts calling me names. Yeah, and don't call me a seppi, please. I hate that term.
Just so you know, I just found I was reading the Alberta Act. By the way, you can actually you can find this document on from the Government of Canada website, and I just want to read Section 4. It reads, "The said province, which is in this case Alberta, shall be represented in the Senate of Canada by 4 members, provided that such representation may, after the completion of the next decennial census, be from time to time increased to 6 by the Parliament of Canada." So basically what this means, based on just face value, is that we will never have more than 6 members, 6 senators in Canada, based on the Alberta Act.
Correct. I encourage everybody to read it. It's not a very long document.
No, and actually, if you look at the document from section 1 to 12, it's just how the province has been incorporated. It's if you have, let's say, a corporation from the Northwest Territories and you have an address in the Western Territories, but includes Alberta, the company will be transferred to Alberta. And from section 12 to 25, it's just the boundaries, like how the electoral boundaries are selected. Like from this place to this place, it's going to be Stony Plain. From this place to this place, it's going to be Lethbridge, such and such. So really, the focus is just from section 1 to 13, and anything else is just landmarking, basically. So we're going to the Q&A section. We're just going to adjust the cameras, and we'll see you in a bit. All right, guys, we're going to start the Q&A session soon, so please get yourself to your seats.
Start playing the,
Yep.
and then we'll work our way up.
Yep.
You're good? Okay. Welcome everybody back to the Q&A. I want you, if you can, if you'd like to, grab a handful of these to hand them out. We just keep printing them out. So I spent, when I had my grandkids there, I just kept push and print, and then I sit back there and I fold them. Some of you asked about our merchandise. I have all the sizes. I just didn't want to drag it out all onto the tables. So if you want to, somebody has also said, well, I want something that says more independent. As Let's Talk Alberta, it's an educational society. We cannot have one side or the other. So that's why we just have the Let's Talk Alberta logo on our stuff. Because as an educational society, we cannot be a proponent as the society for one side or the other. So that's what we're doing with that. Personally, we can say things, but as a society, we have to. So come and get a whack of these. We just keep printing them out. Chris also has, we also have one that is for First Nations, and then there's another one back there that is the other side of the answer to the $400 billion number that Danielle threw out to the Four Winds.
So for the Q&A session, the way it's going to work is that Brad, over there, Brad, raise your hand. Over there. This is Brad. He has the Q&A microphone. So what we're going to do is that we're going to use he has a microphone. If you have questions, raise your hand, and he will come to the microphone to you. You see, there's a one right there. Please try to avoid something like this. Hey, I got a question. Can you say something? Because what happens is that people on the stream, A, cannot hear you. 2 was kind of rude, and 3, it's kind of hard to manage. So if you want to speak, have a question, it's a requirement to talk over the microphone. Okay, thanks.
Before we get started, I have a favor to ask of everybody. The algorithms play havoc with our social media.
Yep.
And when we're putting posters out. So I would ask that everybody go to freedomcalendar.net, letstalkalberta.com, the Whistle Stop Facebook page, or the Let's Talk Alberta Facebook page. Grab posters for upcoming events and send them out to people that you know in the area, and ask them to send them on to other people, and so on. I call it the shampoo method. I don't know how many people remember the commercials from the 70s and 80s.
You know about hair.
But yeah, I guess I use too much shampoo. But they had the Clairol commercials in the 70s and 80s, where you tell 2 friends and they'll tell 2 friends, and so on and so on. And if you could do that, it would be greatly appreciated, because that seems to be the way that we have to do our promotion of our events. So thank you. Now, on with the questions.
This is not really a question. It's several definitions, and then I'm going to make a request of everybody. The first statement is, or definition is, out of the Species at Risk Act of Canada, any species that has been introduced to an area for more than 50 years is indigenous. Most of us are over 50, and we're all here in Alberta, which is an area, and humans are a species. And I believe that's also in the United States Endangered Species Act. And anytime you have 2 lawyers having the same definition, it comes from another source. I am not sure what the source is, but I believe it is the UN. So the next one is definitions on what is national, oh God, I forgot what the word is. National, we'll come back to it. No, we'll come back to it. So one of the things that I challenge you all to do, I build a spreadsheet on Alberta's history and events, because you can't remember them all. I put dates, then I put the event, and then I put on an Excel spreadsheet, then I put my source where I got that information, and the effect. And lots of our answers, we get asked questions because we want to have independence. It's already been done. It's already been answered. It gives you your answer. Just show it to them, and they can go look it up themselves. Such as, where are we going to get our money? Alberta already made its own money once. It got shut down by the federal government. It was called funny money, 1936 to 1938. And it actually got money circulating in Alberta. They were the first place to get money moving again in the dirty 30s. It was the way the provincial government paid its bills. You had to go to a bank every month, get a 1-cent stamp put on this script, or it went to 99 cents. You didn't take this money and put it in a bank, because every month you had to pay a penny to keep it there. That's one of the things that you figure out as you start writing all this stuff down. And the latest one that I learned, and I learned this from Rebel News and Health Canada, federal policies kill 30% of all the people that die in Canada through either MAID or through safe supply for drugs, and they're overdosing. Figure that one out. Why would you want to stay in a country that kills 30% of its people? Yeah.
Click. Oh, there we go. Hey, what's up? All right, so my question is, so we want a strong sovereign Alberta, is that correct? So if we have a strong sovereign Alberta, that means we as Albertans will own like all the major infrastructure of the land. Like, I believe basically for a stronger Alberta, it means we have to have a much more building Alberta. I believe that means we should be upgrading towns into cities and cities into something bigger than they are, so that way we can continue making Alberta bigger and stronger and more free than it already is, I suppose. So I have to ask you guys, would you guys actually be in favor of doing what it takes to make sure Alberta, from its own government, controls the means of providing everything for its citizens, as well as building everything its citizens need?
I'll break the way you put that down a little bit, because I'm not for government owning the infrastructure, but I am for the government providing means to get that infrastructure. And yes, I'm for growing our not so much our cities, but we need to increase the economic benefits in our rural communities substantially. I mean, we have transportation corridors in this province that there's no reason why smaller towns like Castor or any place like that can't have major developments within them. It's easy enough to get product to market, so there's no reason why that needs to be built in the cities. It could be built in the smaller communities. Whenever you have large cities, you have much more problems. It's a lot better to have those industries move out into the rural. But I believe that, yes, we do need development in rural communities and to build our infrastructure up to be strong. And that's something that we need to do.
And I'm always a proponent of smaller government. The smaller the government, the more freedom that you and I have as people, because basically we are the government when you look at it. Remember the old days when they used to call government workers civil servants? And it's become the other way around. Now government has gotten so big, we are expected to serve them. And my personal opinion, and that's all I can say, because I'm not leading this country, but my personal opinion is the smaller government, the better.
So I follow up for the smaller government part. Wouldn't a smaller government just mean it's a weaker and incompetent government because it can't grow and sustain itself, that it just does nothing? Like, wouldn't a smaller government just be one guy sitting in a chair going, yeah, I can approve of that or not? So isn't it contradictive or counterproductive to us to advocate for a smaller government and instead maybe we should ask for a competent, worthy, and growing government that actually wants to do things right? Because I have to say, sorry, but that'd be like asking what was the first Premier of Canada, John A. Macdonald. That'd be asking like John A. Macdonald saying, you know what, we don't need trains. I can just sit here in Ottawa and do nothing all day. So yeah.
Well, I do believe that large government works to increase themselves before serving the people, and that's a problem that happens with bureaucrats. The bigger the machine, the bigger they serve themselves and they protect themselves. The problem with government job, and if you look here in Alberta at the turnover of the public servant, it's very, very low. And for me, it's an indication that they are too comfortable. Because once you get a job at the government, you don't want to get out of it. And then I believe in entrepreneurship, and I believe in entrepreneurship within bureaucrats as well. So bureaucrats know the same, like if you have a good convenience store, you want to open a second one, a third one. If you're director of a department, you want to have the more and more and more people below you. And you will make decisions that are not for the people. So to think that you can grow a government thinking that that big government will work for the people is an utopia. It's good in principle. It might sound good, but practically speaking, it's not working. and they are looking always to add some layers to protect themselves. The second thing, as a bureaucrat, you don't want to put your job in jeopardy because you're paid roughly 20% more than what you would do in public sector. With all the advantage, you're sure not losing your job, no layoff, nothing will affect your job. So the last thing you want to do is change something that might jeopardize your position. So you will always advocate for things to remain the same and for things to turn a bit like, it's a bit like a super tanker. Like once you turn it, it goes. No? So there's two things about that. The first thing, it is advantageous in a democracy because that way you cannot just have one politician shifting everything because it's a super tanker. This is where the balance has to exist between the size of government and the number of population. And again, I'm an advocate for a lean machine. We were discussing together about healthcare and system for system. I know you don't agree because Singapore is basically a city country, but in terms of population, it's about similar to Alberta, and their healthcare system. What they do spend on healthcare, about similar to Alberta, and you look at the service that they dispense, it's within the three best in the world to their population. We pay the most in the world for our healthcare with the least performance in the world. So it's not even the least for what we pay; it's the least period for public service. So that's a good example of, and then you look at the bureaucracy that manage their healthcare. We have in the healthcare system alone about 19,000 bureaucrats that manage the system. In Singapore, to manage our system, there are around 1,200. So there's 18,000 more. Too much here. So this is where I do not agree in increasing the size of government, because the more you increase it, thinking that it will serve better the public, and the more it becomes inefficient.
I was going to say, what is there, 15%, or is it higher than that, of total government employees in Canada?
Of all levels of government, it's close to 30%. 30.
Yeah. In Quebec, it's 45%.
But your thing is not mutually exclusive. Small government does not mean competent government, and large government does not mean incompetent government. But that's the way it's turning out right now. Is large government is inefficient and incompetent. If you had a smaller government, you could have a much more competent government where the employees of the government were more responsive in how they act towards the people that are paying them, instead of being
accountable to themselves.
Yeah, accountable to themselves. I mean, look at the AHS. AHS alone, 60% of the wages are paid to the top 10%. I mean, it's a bureaucratic bloat, and they don't do that 10%. Just makes more rules to keep themselves in power. A lot of the times they make rules that actually make no sense. Let's go to agriculture. There's a really good one. The on-farm slaughter. So you have an issue with some of the ethnic groups in the cities slaughtering in a garage and taking it to a daycare and getting kids sick because it was improperly slaughtered. So what did they do? They make a rule that all farmers can no longer slaughter on farm if it's over 5,000 pounds. That's their limit to the amount. You can't sell to your neighbor with your meat anymore because some group in the city did it. They make laws that justify their existence, and smaller government is less likely to do that, especially if they have oversight over them, which unfortunately our governments have lost oversight on the bureaucrats. The bureaucrats run the government, not the other way around, and that's right from municipal governments right up to federal government. The bureaucrats tell the government what they're going to do, and that's not right. It should be the other way around.
This is very interesting talk about the size of the government, because I just happened to have a comment online which is basically reads, I have two friends that work for the federal government. Both have said on numerous occasions that it is the easiest job ever, and basically all they have to do is show up. Productivity isn't expected.
Yeah, sure.
So basically from that comment, and I don't know who that comment is, that could just be anyone from anywhere, honestly. So if we have like some people who are incompetent or not doing anything in the government or anything productive, I agree, yeah, that should be cut, because why the heck are we paying and wasting taxes for that? I agree. But when I say I want a strong government, I don't mean like one as big and as bloated as, Quebec in any matter. What I'm talking about more is like one that runs efficiently and does what it needs to do to encourage the growth of a country, or sovereignty in that matter. What you guys are describing is something like a municipality. You want like a municipality kind of sovereignty for an entire province, if I'm correct. Because the example what you said about the animal, if it got killed, but if it turns out it had some disease, then we don't want to have like a government that has an incompetent take on what law we should have. But in that matter is, well, if there is a case of like, again, for example, like food safety, in your vision of what your government you want, would we have any kind of regulation for food safety to make sure that kitchens do not have dirty, animals running around, or that the fridge is in improper temperature? Like, what should we do?
Of course. When did I ever say that there shouldn't be? I said that the neighbor, you could no longer sell your meat to your neighbor. That has nothing to do with commercial operations. I have no problem with there being food inspection for any time that meat goes into a commercial operation, or for inspection of food facilities. But sometimes they get ridiculous on that too. You take a look at what they've done to halls. They made it so that halls, unless they certify a commercial kitchen, the ladies in the community can't get together and do a potluck. They take everything to the extreme. Every time that they do something, they take it, if they just said, well, we want to make sure that you keep everything clean. So originally they said, with the halls, they said that as long as you have 3 basins and you keep the water hot, and you can do a proper rinse on it, you're fine. Now they're insisting that they have to have dishwashers. Well, how many people have ever met a little old lady that's going to let a dirty dish get into the cupboard? It's not going to happen. And they've never had a case of people get sick at halls, but they make a law and a regulation to justify their existence. And it goes on and on like that. There's nothing wrong with the basis of having food inspection, but then they take it to the extreme.
So I agree with you. Yeah, like I understand in the aspect of like, in the simpler times and simpler days, it used to just be people had hot water and that was enough to clean everything. But rules that like this would have a reason, and there's a reason why we're not a dirty community with people sick all the time, and instead we have people who are healthy and keep themselves clean. It's because people would tend to ignore, if they have the opportunity to ignore doing something to keep things clean, they'll say it's fine. Because again, and it's kind of hard for me to think of a good example of this because this doesn't happen often, but if there was not a rule against, making sure people would sanitize their dishes, most people would just simply rinse it in water and it would be the same pond.
You're 100% wrong. Halls do not do that because they know that if people get sick in their community, they're not going to come out to functions.
All right.
The halls are going to be clean. They have never had a case of somebody get sick at a community dinner in this province, ever.
Ever?
Ever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I've already been to the kitchen. I know they keep it clean because people who want to keep it clean. I know that, and well, that's a pretty strong claim to say no one's ever gone sick.
Never any reported cases.
Oh, none reported. I wonder why. Okay, but that's
well, if they go to the hospital, they have foodborne illness, they're going to track down where it comes from. Yeah. So never report it.
It's kind of hard to track down food poisoning, though. No one can just say if someone ate food here today, 2 days later they get sick. It can be assumed they got it.
We're going down a rabbit hole.
All right. I agree.
Cut it there.
Can someone else take the mic?
What I would like to say is just to get back to your original question, big government versus little government. Big government does not mean successful, good government. Little government does not equal weak government. The bottom line is the bigger the government, the more bureaucracy, the more they tell me what to do, how to do things. This is why I'm moving away from big government, why I want small government back.
And this is an Albertan value, by the way. This is the core, like you just look at the provincial sale tax. Alberta never had a provincial sale tax. In fact, that's not a true statement. Alberta had a provincial state tax, a provincial sales tax in 1936, the same year they created this currency, because Alberta was dead poor and was defaulting on his bonds and on his loans. So Eberhard imposed a provincial sales tax of 2%, and while Albertans were the poorest they ever been, they rejected it. He had to repel it within 7 months. Okay, so this is cultural. This is a value. Okay, so again, even like doing the bread line, because you don't have money, Albertan decided still government stay out my lane. And this is why I think it's one of the heartstring, one of the things that characterize us over other Canadians.
I was just going to say how many people were hired under Notley, and I don't think Daniels got rid of them. And then you go to Trudeau, since he came in, until Carney, how many people were hired federally? And I think most of them are still there, so that's excess government for how it's performed.
Do you want numbers? No?
That's scary numbers.
I will tell you the best job that ever been done in the country in terms of bureaucrats, the best correction ever has been done under a Liberal government in 1993 under Paul Martin. From 1993 to 1995, Paul Martin, as Minister of Finance, laid off 500,000 federal bureaucrats. None have done that since him. And so Paul Martin, Liberal, did the biggest cleanup to the bureaucrats that this country ever saw. And we're still living, we went through it. I'm sure that most of you didn't even know this. In 95, I'm sure that if you had the EI, you would still get your check and you still file your taxes. The plane kept on flying, and so this is the reality. And I believe that type of correction is needed both provincially here. I believe that we have at least 30,000 too much bureaucrats in this province, and has to be done federally as well.
I was going to say 50,000.
Anybody else have a question? Anything?
If anyone online has some questions, just put it on the chat. We're going to go after them, okay?
Okay. You're ready, sir.
This is for Benoit. I think he's covered this, what I'm going to talk about. On YouTube, there is a documentary, and it's narrated by Carla Treadway. And she talks about, the title is Pierre Trudeau, the Club of Rome, the 50-year plan to destroy Canada. Now, I wonder if, show of hands, how many people know about it or have seen it, and if it's a good idea for a campaign.
Yeah, Pierre Trudeau was the second most terrible prime minister we had after his son. It's a family thing.
Yeah, nice of the way he talks about his family.
Yes. Pierre Trudeau, no, he was a dandy. It's an expression that we don't use anymore, but dandy was quite used in England at the turn of the century. There were people that never had to work in their life. So the only thing they had to do is be the playboy, travel the world, And this is what Trudeau did. And what Trudeau did in 1953, he decided to create a publication named Cité Libre in Quebec, so free press basically, or free city translation. And all separatist and independentist leader of movement in Quebec worked for him as journalist. So he corralled them all, and he had the money to pay everybody because his dad sold his 10 gas stations to Imperial Oil at the time for $1 million in 1909. And his grandpa, Mr. Elliott, that lawyer office still exists today, and now it's Elliott Stern. Maybe it's at the time it was Elliott Stern when I was young. Well, Elliott was the #1 lawyer in Montreal, and Montreal had at the time in 1900 99% of all the wealth of Canada. The people that controlled that wealth were living in Montreal, and out of the 99% controlling the wealth, about 80% were clients of Elliott at the time, who was the Trudeau's grandfather. So all that to say that Trudeau, when he created Cité Libre, decided to use his money to play the game, and it took 25 years. So he shut down Cité Libre when he became Prime Minister. Even when he was Minister of Finance, he still has his publication running in Quebec. It became the most popular political publication in Quebec. He's the one that set everything on fire. And then what he's done, he made a deal with, there was a independence movement in Algeria that ended up with the independence on Algeria that costed 300,000 lives. And Trudeau basically sponsored that move. He sponsored Castor, who became one of his best friends. Castor, in 1973, spent his Christmas at the Trudeau's house in Montreal. So all that to say and then Trudeau spent, through Cité Libre, spent 25 years of his life building a plan to make of Canada the first post-national nation in the world, and to create that utopia of multiculturalism being what Canadians are. No, we need to be multicultural. And don't get me wrong, I don't have anything against multiculturalism, whatever, sorry.
That thing.
Yeah, that thing. You know what? When words are too close to the French words, I'm not able to say them. So
Multiculturalism.
So thank you. So basically, what happened is that if you don't assert who you are, you cannot support multiculturalism, because then you get and then what Trudeau did. There's two things that Trudeau did in '82 by bringing back the Constitution. By the way. That constitution was signed in the back of René Lévesque. The Quebec never signed that constitution. So that's our story. It was called the Night of the Long Knives, referring to Hitler when he sent and totally killed half of his generals that wouldn't listen to him. So anyway, so all that to say that Trudeau, when he brought back the constitution in '82, he did two poison pills in it. One is called the Charter of Right and Freedom. This is the worst thing that ever happened to Canada, because it gave priority, two things: priority to the minority, so now the minority can impose on the majority what they want, and secondly, it shifted the power from the commons to the judicial, to the judges. So, and then the second poison pill that he put in there is equalization. And why equalization is a poison pill? Because the one that benefit the most of the equalization are the Atlantic provinces, not Quebec. Quebec is 7 in a row in terms of who benefits from the equalization. Quebec equalization, the 13 billion that everybody speaks about, it's 8% of their budget. So, I mean, if something would change, they would probably say something. They would probably say, excuse my French, but that it wouldn't kill them, no? If you change equalization for New Brunswick, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, PEI, 24% of their budget depend on equalization. 22% New Brunswick. So for them, it kills them. And then what Trudeau did, it brought that 750 rule, meaning that to change the constitution, you need 7 provinces representing at least 50% of the population by bringing the equalization from because it was just a law before that could have been repealed on the Tuesday morning, you know. But then he put it in the Constitution to make sure that the Constitution would be forever locked off with the keys through the sea. Because we will never be able, ever, because of the equalization, to get 7 provinces representing 50% of the population. So anyway, so he was an awful individual. He's the one as well that started, he's the first one. Before him, Canada had no debt. He's the one that started borrowing for Canada. He's the one, and then of course his son is the cherry on the cake. Like this is atrocious what he's done for us.
That's where I just have to correct you. Are you sure it's his son?
Well, yeah, and that's funny because so he was born on Christmas Day, 1970. And in fact, Castor was there, I think, in 71, not in 73. So Castor was actually at their house for his first birthday. So, and I have a front page of a Montreal newspaper that confirmed that it made the news in Montreal. Castor spent the Christmas at the Trudeau's at their house in Montreal, no? And it was for the first birthday of his son, probably, Justin.
I'm going to have to look at this and see by myself. That's going to be a fun thing to see.
Documentary, she has the courage to call Pierre Trudeau, Justin Trudeau, Mark Carney, and Avi Lewis, the leader of the NDP, communist. And I think she's right.
Oh yeah, they're definitely Marxist and communist. And then speaking of Carney, so Carney is him and his wife is the nephew of Margaret Trudeau's second husband. So Margaret, after leaving Pierre and after having a couple of nights with Mick Jagger, went and married a restaurateur from Ottawa, and that restaurateur is the uncle of Carney's wife, I believe, or Carney's himself. Yeah.
I have a song for that. It's called "I'm My Own Grandpa." I thought only Mennonites would understand that one, but I guess not.
I think there's even an episode of Futurama about that.
We laugh about it, but if you read Trump's Art of the Deal, it talks about her in there. I mean, she was the talk of the town of how many people she actually spent time with. Quality time, I guess you would call it.
She was beautiful and stupid like her son. Sorry.
The whole goal of this net zero started with Pierre Trudeau, and then get up to today, and they're just taking it to the extreme. They're following the same agenda.
I agree, and it's written, and it's just like you can see it unfolding, and it's funny because COVID was good for that. Is that there's a lot of stuff that were attributed to tinfoil hats and stuff like that, including the World Economic Forum that people say, what are you talking about? And now suddenly, 6 years later, we see every year the speech of all these guys at the World Economic Forum. No? So anyway, so all that to say, yes, they're just unveiling their plan. No?
They've never been secret about it, because if you went to their website, it was always published right on their website of what their plan was. I mean, they were never secretive about it. But back to Pierre Elliott Trudeau. Do you know that in 1980, when he brought in the National Energy Program, he actually said that he was bringing it in to stop Alberta from becoming the economic engine of Canada. So part of his whole plan, and then his son, was to make sure that the West never rose.
Yeah, and that gets back to big government. I'm sorry, buddy, but it just keeps coming back to the bigger the government is, the more powerful they get to be the dictator, and you and I sit here without a prayer. So that's, again, why I'm sticking for small government.
So, and I think destroy is the right word for that, because bringing immigration in, like they've done, that erodes the services that we have for the hospitals, and that's the affordability now too. And that's all part of that plan, is to take the wealth out of Canada.
Well, Premier Smith brought very interesting figures, maybe 2 months ago now, about immigration in Alberta that they brought in the Alberta economy. The recent immigration, by the way. No, we have to be cognizant of what happened, that they just opened the door to anyone. I'm all for immigration when you choose who comes in and when you screen who comes in. But when you screams come in, it's different, no? And this is what happened. And Premier Smith had a study that she unveiled like 2 months ago, saying that the immigrant that came in the past 4 years, I believe, brought $150 million of new money to the province and cost us $1.5 billion. So they cost us, in fact, 10 times more than what they brought to the economy. Well, this is bad immigration. And we need to take the reign, and we need to control who comes on our territory. But for that, we need ways, we need controls valves that needs to be determined. So which we don't have.
And here's where I want to point it back to hope, because the people who are working on this, that are smarter than me, that are working on the white papers, that are working on the, hey, this is how it can be done, they are planning to trot this out in front of you and me, so that when it's all out there, you and I can actually have a say in how this is done. If you don't like the way it's done here, and this is what we're hearing tonight, just, I don't like this, I don't like that, what about this? We have a say for the first time in history. So get out there and be a part of the referendum, choose wisely, and then when they start trotting these things out and saying, what do you think, what do you want, do not stay home. We have a chance to do this. That's hope.
I'd just suggest that we not only need to get a hold on who we're letting into this country, well, into Alberta, once Alberta is our own country. We also need, there's a lot of people that we damn well need to get rid of, that need to go back from whence they came. And I don't say that lightly. I noticed just today something that happened yesterday in Saskatoon. A woman that had her little children at a water park had two of these guys, who I won't mention, were sitting there filming these little kids. These are sick people, and they need to know, we not only got to stop them from coming in, but we got to get them out. Once Alberta takes over Alberta, there's a lot of people that need to damn well leave. And you know what else? The reason I say this, I have a granddaughter in Calgary that went to work for a company that was run by some of these people, of whom I won't elaborate. She made one little mistake at work, and that SOB threatened her life. You know that? And I'll tell you something. You can thank my old girl that guy's still walking around above ground, and I'm not behind bars today. That's all I got to say, thanks.
The thing we have to remember, too, is these are not the roots of the problems we have. People are the roots of the problems we have. And honestly, this, I believe, you may not agree with me, but that's all right. My opinion is this is a spiritual issue. This is what happens when people say, God, you can just get out of our country, get out of our schools, get out of our courtrooms. And he finally says, okay, I'll lift my hand of protection off of this country. This is what it's going to look like. I cannot figure any other way of explaining why things, typically when a society starts going downhill, you know, in this year, you know, we would never consider doing such and such, but these people want to do it. So, but it usually takes maybe one, maybe two generations to slowly slide down. What we're seeing is straight off the cliff like a bunch of lemmings. So that's just, I'll put that out so you can smoke that in your pipe.
Yeah, well, you see, a lot of these people that they have allowed to come flooding in to this country are so far removed from our culture and our way of thinking and our way of treating other people. It's not going to work. It can't work. We're going to have anarchy if this keeps up. I mean, this country, for God's sake, if we don't break away with Alberta from this insane thing that has taken over this country, man, I don't know. We've got to break away. I pray to God the seeds are sown to end Alberta's relationship in this country.
Well, again, and no, like of course, I'm speaking a lot about Quebec because I lived there 35 years and I was involved active politics for 10 years, and I was involved in the first Harper government for the region of Quebec. That was my role there. I was distributing 4.3 billion of grants to Quebec from the federal government. So I know that mission very well, and there's a reason I'm here. So I'm not advocating to duplicate the structures. I'm advocating to duplicate the principles. And one other thing that we have the right under our constitution to do is to take over our immigration, and is to advocate to whom we give a driver's license, and to whom we give a health card, and to whom we, so I believe that when you speak about getting rid of the bad element, I believe that if we're very serious about administration of justice is provincial. Quebec has its own civil code, by the way. Quebec, they have the Napoleon Code from 1806 that rules all civil cases in the province. So we have the opportunity to rule the law that Ottawa gave us in the criminal code the way we intend to rule it. So we don't have to follow the way Ottawa tell us to rule it. What we need to take control of, that Quebec advantage has, is that it's Ottawa that named the judges. And that's the disadvantage that we have, is that our judges, because of the language, can come from anywhere. Where in Quebec, judges all come from Quebec because they need to speak French. So that's the difference. But I believe that we can move towards choosing our judges. We can decide not to pay a judge. Like if you don't like the judge that the federal send us, we just tell the judge that, sorry, we don't have an office for you. Sorry, we cannot pay your check this week if we control our money. So then we can start shifting stuff the way we want if we have the courage to do it. And I salute as well our Minister of Transport. Last year shut down, I think, 38 driving school and truck inspection that were fraudulent. And he was accused to be racist, to be this and that, because they were all owned by one ethnic group. But it is what it is. No, like this, we have to do more of that. And if they don't find a way to earn a living here, and if they don't have a way to have their driver's license, well, too bad, so sad. Go somewhere else. I believe this coming fall, he wants to bring a new law that will give a 2-year barrier to get anything else than a Class 5 when you come here and you get your driver's license from not another province. So if you come with a driver's license from a country starting by I, for instance, you will have to wait 2 years before getting any other class than Class 5. So at least you will go through 2 winters, so you don't put your freaking semi in the ditch as soon as there's 0.5 centimeter of snow falling all over the place and kill 18 people by doing so. So anyway, so this is what we need to do more.
Sure. So I listened to a gentleman by the name of Lieutenant Colonel David Redmond, who is retired. So David Redmond, I believe he's from Red Deer. There used to be, when he went through his training to be an officer, he had to learn the 6 different rules to make a country independent. And they all had 25-year plans. They had white papers attached to them. And one of them was on borders and immigration. When old man Trudeau came into power, those all disappeared.
In fact, Cathy Flatt, who toured with us, she speaks in our tour of Let's Take Alberta, did a series with Colonel Redmond about one episode of podcast per subject. It's very interesting. I think I don't know where you can find it. I'm not good to refer stuff, but if you look for Cathy's, what's our organization?
The Alberta's Women Independence Network. They are on YouTube, by the way.
They're what?
They're on YouTube.
Okay.
So if you search Alberta's Women Independence Network, she's right there.
Yeah,
Yes.
A wins all over the place.
Yes, and it's a very, very good series. There is 6 or 7 podcasts based on the 6 or 7 principle of Redmond there. Yeah.
And on that topic, the Iranian, what do they call that? IRCG, they're the Iranian army, basically, and the largest group outside of the Middle East is based in Fort McMurray. How's that one for a statement, guys?
Yeah, they have oil.
Okay, so we'll ask one more question and then we'll wrap it up.
Would it be reasonable to have actual politicians liable for mismanagement of funds and, corruption laws?
Oh,
Because they're
most
protected.
definitely, but that'll be up to the people, to you and me and everybody else when we get into the phase where we design our Constitution. We can build it right into the Constitution, protections against that and making them liable. So that's something that we can look at that time when we go to form that, making them liable. If they do something corrupt, like half the federal politicians do now, that we can't go after them for, well, we can make it so that it's not up to the politicians to prosecute themselves.
Call it the Teflon removal policy.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that we kind of forgot as a society, a community, is the ministerial accountability. I was raised with that, and when in 2006, when I was assistant to Minister Jean-Pierre Blackburn, we were reminded of that the minister is responsible for any action of any of the employees below him. And there was a time, in even the Mulroney time, that the minister would have to resign if something, 10% of what happens today that goes would have happened. And I don't know how to, I know that the law is still there. I know somewhere, somehow, but we need to keep our elected official accountable. And I'm sorry if you don't know what the receptionist of that service Alberta Contra did, but if she did something wrong, you need as a minister to resign. So anyway, so that's I believe it was a big guardrail of protection that does not exist anymore, sadly, or it's not applied anymore.
But even, don't you think that maybe like just resigning isn't enough anymore?
Well, I mean, it came to the point where because they stop resigning and they see that it goes. No, it's like your 2-year-old that you you let him do a tantrum. The more you let him do, the more he will do a tantrum. So it's the same thing. It's like you do a little thing, you don't have to resign. Then you do bigger, then you don't have to resign. And now it's two proportions that are absolutely insane. And we need to bring back the bar.
Now you have a prime minister who makes sure that almost every single contract that goes through touches his company. So.
Well, yeah. So that's yeah.
It's that accountability thing, and I think that's what you're saying, and I agree 100%. That why should we have a set of standards that you and I are held to? You can't do this. If you do this, this is going to happen, and the elites have a completely different standard. They're just as human and Canadian as anybody else, or Albertan, you name it. It needs to be the same across the board, my opinion.
Well, they're not all Canadians, and Carney just let go his UK citizenship
That's
recently to become prime minister.
Okay, do you think that AI is going, like, can you make it so that AI can be helpful in this whole process?
AI is a stupid machine. so you have to understand that it's algorithm that deal with what you feed it. No, so
it's only as good as this program.
Garbage in, garbage out, and even when it garbage stuff out. I work a lot with AI because for research it shrink a lot the time of doing research. But I can guarantee you that you need to verify everything, even basic calculations like it's not what they say it is. They say what it is because they like to create trillionaire like Musk and other fraudsters like that. But I mean, it's not what they say it is.
Thank you.
It's just matrices and vectors. That's all.
Yeah.
So
One
quick
last
question about.
statement, yeah. Okay, too quick.
Okay,
Gotta be quick,
it's
folks.
quick. It's very quick. So for the AI part, I agree pretty much with your stake on the AI. It definitely needs to be changed. Would you agree then that AI should be only used mainly for just for scientific research purposes, such as for medical findings and helping the high-end calculations? Because from what I've seen, it's best at doing that like for cancer research. And when it comes to making dialogue, it's absolute garbage. So what's your opinion?
Plagiarism.
Large language models are handy when you're doing when you want them to do editing. That's what I use it for. Like if I'm writing something and I write it out first time and I'll get it to edit to do the corrections in prose or whatever. But to use it for much else, it's what it's programmed for. It is good at searching research data that's already in existence, but using it outside those parameters, to have it be the police force or something of that nature, no, it's not going to work for that because it's relies too much upon those that are putting the data in.
And I do believe when it turned to research, for instance, cancer, which is probably the illness has been the most researched and funded in the past 50 years. I believe it can be very useful in crunching humongous amount of data to find patterns. So I do believe that yes, there's some use. It's a tool, but it's a tool that needs to be harnessed and used by humans, and that we shouldn't let AI do anything, any automation that will give AI the last word, like for instance, self-driving a car in a snowstorm.
Some of the speakers have mentioned this white paper that they're preparing. Now, is it available, or how soon will it be available to people to see it?
Yeah, the middle of the month, Keith Wilson and you go ahead.
No, it's okay. Yeah, it's Keith Wilson. So Keith has his TPA, but beside that, he's chairing a group of specialists on the transition. And again, he's not bringing solution. He's not saying this is how we're gonna go from there to there. What he's saying, what his group is doing, is a mechanism to go from one place to the other. So you won't find any answer of what will happen for currency or what will happen with the air traffic or whatever. By the way, air traffic, that's another fear-mongering stuff, because air traffic is another layer of whether we're independent or not, we will still have air traffic. But if drones can fly in Ukraine still, a plane will still fly in Alberta the day after. So what I'm saying, though, is that what Keith is building with his group is the process. So how do we analyze, how do we step from A, B, C to end up with the new system? But it won't provide answer to say, this is what will happen with the money, this is what will happen with the defense, this is what. It will tell you what will need to happen to go from one point to the other, and that's available mid-month. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that is supposed to be out. So look for that, and then they will start holding constitutional conferences and other conferences where at a theater near you, where you can get a chance to get in and have your say, and that, my fine feathered friends, is democracy. That is what I think is beautiful. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, we'll wrap it up there. And I want to thank all of you for coming tonight and for some of the very good questions, even the ones we may not agree with you. I still very much appreciate your questions. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
And thank you very much. And if you could give a hand putting away the chairs and the light can helping us, it gets us out of here quicker. I don't know, but we have to check a look.
And I'd like to also thank the people who are watching online. That was awesome. So I would like to also thank the people who are watching online. That was very awesome, very helpful. And I will see you at the Ranchman's on Sunday at 9 a.m. Over there, I will be flipping pancakes. It's going to be either very interesting or very dreadful, depending on how I see things. So I'll be there, and until there, I'll see you next time then.